I'm going to introduce Darwin Healey and John Gaffe. They're going to share with you breaking down the barriers. Darwin will infuse his grandmother's story as a residential school survivor, then move through the challenges as a First Nation person that faces today, such as racism, based on uninformed judgments. Darwin will help us look to the future and know how we as educators have the ability to break down barriers and instill positive change. Darwin Healey is a recent graduate of Catholic Central High School, and he is currently a student at Lethbridge College. Darwin strives to be an example, a positive one, and helps share those positive aspects of the First Nations culture and their accomplishments. John Gaffe. John has worked as a youth and child care worker for 12 years. He ran the first Aboriginal child and support program for Aboriginal families in Alberta, and has worked as in and with the psychiatric wing in Lethbridge and the Blood Tribe Youth Ranch. John received his educational degree in 2005 and began his teaching career in Calgary. He has also taught in Siksika Nation, I don't know if I pronounced that, Red Crow Community College, and is currently at Catholic Central as a Blackfoot teacher. One of John's main goals was to experience a variety of different educational experiences and having accomplishments that his next goal is to attain his master's in counseling. Please welcome Darwin and John.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Darwin Healey. Like Mrs. Perron said, I'm a recent graduate here at CCH. I graduated the past May. Education has just been a big part of our family, and even though we have suffered the effects of residential school, we never forgot that the education is a big, huge part of our culture now. Education is our buffalo, and it would have been really hard to pass or just get through high school without people like Mrs. Perron. She really taught me that, she taught me that I don't really, if I pick something I want to do and do that for the rest of my life, I don't have to work. It's not considered working, it's just enjoying yourself. And that's really what I'm trying to share with everybody. Just hold on, bear with me. This is the first time I'm actually doing a speech on a big scale, so just my apologies in advance. My big story is about my grandma. My grandma is the most wonderful person to me. She was the true definition of a grandmother. She was the mother of the house. Over all my 18 years knowing her, I never really knew the effects that residential school had on her. I knew she went through it, but I never really knew the effects of it firsthand, I guess, until after she passed. We were looking through her stuff, and I found a note or kind of a statement on her whole residential experience. She kind of kept it hidden from us for so many years. I was kind of appalled when I read it. Just the way I saw her when she was alive was just, I never really noticed it after I read it. Just an example is, she had always wanted to work and provide for her family, but she never really could because she was always afraid to go back to school. She was always afraid of the abuse she suffered from just residential school. She was so afraid to go through it again, and that just kind of made her quiet. She was always home. She was turned into a housewife. She was just home. She always wanted to work, but she could never go and get a higher education. She said she wanted to be a nurse, and this is just an example. She went back to Olds College with her husband, my grandpa. she went to Olds College. In the first few weeks she was in college, she was kind of criticized just for being a native. She would hear stuff like in the note I read. She said she was scared to go back to school because she'd have people telling her, "You're a stupid Indian. You're savage. You're just horrible things." So that discouraged her from never really wanting to go further her education to work. And that was just really where my grandpa stepped in, and that's just where she never really got to, I don't know, just provide. So, and another big thing that really affected us like intergenerationally was how to show a simple thing of affection. Like, you guys could see your grandparents, and every time you leave, you want to say you love them, you hug them, you tell them, just, "I love you, Grandma," stuff like that. For me, I was never really able to do that. I knew she loved me deep down and stuff like that. It was just really hard to explain, like, to show it, just because it was so, that ability was so diminished back in residential school. It just projected onto our family. And it was just something that we had to get through. And this, hold on. In a way, every day she just kind of pushed us to get further our education, because she wanted us to all. She never wanted us to go through the same thing, just being at home, I guess. She wanted us to further our education for the better of our family. And that really does project in our family, because my grandpa, not bragging, but my grandpa was the first native in all of southern Alberta to go on to post-secondary over at Olds College. So ever since, education has been a big part of our family. And that's just how it got, just how I guess we got through all the effects of it. We just kept going to school to better ourselves. And a big, I guess, a hard part of just doing that, it sounds a lot easier than said, is a lot of these families affected by residential school, they can't go back. They don't want to suffer the same thing they did in residential school. And then, so they don't push it. They don't push education. And it's like, I guess I'll just leave it up to John to describe that. It's just, he could describe it better than I can. Yeah.
Thanks, Darwin. My name is John, Chief Gaffe. I attended Catholic Central, actually, back in through 1980 to 83. And at that particular time, there was approximately about 3 Aboriginal students at that time. So my social learning was totally different, but it was really, really complicated on a totally different level. I was sort of the product of the post-residential effect. So my father didn't speak English, and my mother spoke English. So if I had to communicate with my father, I had to communicate through my mother so you can translate to my father. And then we're in a community where there's a lot of poverty and alcohol and violence at the same time. So parent-teacher interviews are out of the question, looking at report cards or any kind of assessment or testing, all of that stuff was gone. That was not existent in the home. So when I came to Lethbridge, my father said, okay, you don't need to learn anything else about being Native. I think what you need to learn is to learn the things that are away from your culture. And in the end, it's your job to put the two together. So when he had said that, I went to St. Mary's, St. Francis, and junior high. And over a time period, I ended up creating an environment or for lack of a better word, maybe an arena of friendship. And all my friends were non-Aboriginal at that time. So I created this entire friendship. And it was based on assessment. It was based on asking questions. It was based on being critical about my own culture, about things away from my culture. And I was left with the position, as my father had said, to figure this out on my own. And so having to live in both environments, it was extremely difficult, along with the racism that had occurred at that time. So I had an incredible amount of high school friends at that time. And I'm still friends with them. We watched Dallas lose yesterday. So, but it was a really good time, and to this day I'm still very close to them. I've known them since grade 2, grade 7, and it is strange because when I go to their house or to their family get-togethers, I'm like family, even though I'm the only Aboriginal person in that group. They are like family. So, coming back to part of that assessment idea, my grandfather was a medicine man, and one of the most important things that he had taught me was that creating a relationship with nature is part of the philosophy of Aboriginal philosophy, is creating that relationship with nature. So there is, every morning he'd get up and pray until the sun comes up, and that he'd do that at the sunset. His belief was that nature was alive, the trees were alive, and the rocks, water, and that if you self-assess your entire personality and your entire spiritual makeup, then you have a stronger intuitive connection, not just to the land, but to yourself. And then you have a much more empathetic, caring sense to the community that you're in. And there is no, I like to use art as a creativity source. You can't put parameters around creativity, and I really believe that you can't put parameters around caring. So it encompasses everything. And so that's sort of some of the effects with me, and then some of the, my grandfather, from what I remember, did not go to residential school, so he came in from a totally different perspective, so I was quite lucky in that sense. So, and I'm gonna let Darwin talk a bit about some of the shared learning. Is that okay?
Throughout my whole high school experience, I've been enrolled in the Blackfoot class. And I think it was ever since grade 7 I've been in it. But I love the class, but the major, I guess, downfall of it was just the same thing every year. And like we all had input on it. And then once we got the new teacher, John here, he did something that completely blew the roof off the class. Like, one thing that gave us power was he did something very unexpected. He let us teach the class. He gave us the power. He in a way we were teaching him. He let us sit there and I guess whatever we feel that we need to teach people, we had the power to. We had the power to be that change. We had the power to just sit there and research and make up our own presentations and stuff. And that just got us away from, I don't know, it just changed our position from sitting and learning to standing and teaching. And that's where I find it could bring a lot more non-native students into the Blackfoot class. I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be a Blackfoot class. That was just a big downfall. It was just, I wanted to share this with non-native students. I wanted to share everything we could, but there was always that barrier, I guess, that felt like it was only for First Nation students. And by John giving us this power to teach, we could teach a multitude of different things to a bunch of non-native students, and that would just open their eyes. That would cut down stereotypes so much, because that was one of the biggest things I had to endure through high school, was just stereotypes. And that doesn't make anybody a bad person. Stereotyping a native, it doesn't make anybody a bad person. It's just lack of knowledge. And a lot of other people would get mad if there's, like, a common one was just Kelsey Cobbs, that has an amazing car, and he gave me the opportunity to buy it off him. And I worked and I worked and I worked for so long to buy this car. And then when I go into college, I have friends that aren't native, but they're genuinely good people. And they just didn't think, and they told me, "Did your tribe buy that car for you?" I'm like, a lot of people other than me would flip desks. I'd freak out, but instead of, you educate them. You tell them, what do you really know? And they can't tell you because they don't. And that's where we get to educate them. We get to be that change. Because the minute you're trying to bring positive change to somebody and you bring that aggression in, they just close their minds. You don't want to hear, I guess you don't want to listen to a jerk try teach you something. You just wouldn't want to listen. So if you just be constructive, just bring positive change, just through education. That's one of the biggest things I want to see happen more. It's just more change to cut down the stereotypes. Thank you all for listening. It's just my first time doing this. Thank you.
Anyone want to add in order to bring change ourselves? Just to close out.
And something I've been thinking about for a while is just to bring change. You just got to be the change that you could see, I guess. Just you got to change yourself, I guess. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John and Darwin. Darwin has kind of let his name stand, even though he has a very, very, very busy schedule right now at the college. But he has offered to actually come into our social studies classes and help instill what is the positive change. And there is no doubt that he has had a wonderful impact on my life. I only had one opportunity to teach him social studies, and that was in his grade 12 year when he did learn about his grandmother. And without a doubt, you did teach me more than I ever taught you. So thank you for that.